Domain tools help security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observe It combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observeit.com/securityweekly. Are you looking for high-performance data storage that's easy to use yet secure enough for the Department of Defense? Look no further. Racktop Systems gives business software-defined data storage complete with embedded compliance, security, and data encryption. Don't let cyber threats, regulatory demands, or the complexity and growth of your data overwhelm your business. Racktop's high-performance data management platform gives you the tools you need to address the most demanding data challenges. Think beyond storage. To learn more, visit racktopsystems.com. Hi everyone, this is Paul Asadorian with Security Weekly. We are here at Black Hat in the pool area in the heat. I've been in the heat all day, so I apologize if I forget what I'm doing at some point. I do know that Bret Settle is here with us, CEO of ThreatX. Bret, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Bret, tell us a little bit about ThreatX and start with the problems and challenges that you solve for your customers today.
Yeah, well, we started ThreatX basically because we were dealing with false positives, we were dealing with the typical operational burden that most companies have trying to manage their firewall solutions. And part of the issue was that it's a binary decision process that most of those tools go through. But part of it also
You're talking about like web applications and WAFs, right?
Web application firewalls and web application security.
I like to think of that as kind of like a regex for every single situation that an attacker could throw at a web app, which doesn't work.
That's correct. That's correct. So our solution is primarily based around an attacker-centric model, meaning that we look at the users and we monitor all of their behavior with the applications and build a risk profile as they continue to progress through whatever hacking behavior they're using. And we score it based on either the intensity that they're using or we score it based on the progression through the kill chain itself.
So your solution's unique in my mind because you're not only looking at the attacker model, but also the vulnerabilities that may be contained in that web application and are able to put those pieces together in a somewhat passive manner, right?
Yeah, and again, some of this is because we're automating a lot of what a good security analyst would do if they could hit the pause button and really start to review the logs and put all the pieces together in their full context. But because we've automated the analysis and the correlation of that data, we can then turn it on its end and look at what are they targeting, which part of the application, in fact, which application among all of the applications that are being protected. And then we also have cross-customer correlation, meaning that we can observe the various techniques they're using regardless of which customer they're using, and then tag that particular attacker so that when we see the same behavior occurring, we know specifically what they're targeting within the application.
And now, the deployment, and I think the reason why folks kind of gravitated towards traditional WAF is because the deployment of some of these new technologies can be somewhat burdensome, but you've taken care of that deployment to make it easy, so tell our listeners a little bit about how it's deployed.
Sure, so what we've done is it's basically Docker containers under the covers. So those Docker containers can be deployed either in our environment with a simple reverse proxy style of implementation, or we can deploy these containers in AWS, in Azure, on-premise. It really doesn't matter to us. We've built plugins for NGINX, we've built other plugins for various customers. And the key is, we feel like hackers are pretty smart and they work around the edges. So they're not necessarily going after the crown jewels right off the bat. They're often looking for the unprotected applications. And we wanted something that was very easy to deploy, very fast time to market, but that could cover virtually any API, microservice, or application in any environment.
One of the concerns that I think most people have when they protect their web applications is performance, right? I'm going to put something in front of my application. I'm going to compile, and not in your case, but in other cases, I might have to recompile my application to get this in. So how do you offer people an optimum level of performance?
Well, some of this is based on how we deploy, and it gets back to the container deployment. We can scale horizontally virtually limitless, right? In addition, if you look at the type of information that we're pulling out of this, typically, worst case, we'd be looking at a 10 millisecond delay. But in many cases, we're building in DNS load balancing. We're also doing compression, and we do edge caching as well. So for some of our customers, especially for, again, these edge applications, they may not have the DevOps skill sets to really maintain the performance they need there. What they're going to find is they're actually getting protection, but they're also getting even better performance.
So you offer like a CDN service that accompanies your...
Yeah, and we stop short of calling it a full-blown CDN, but we do edge caching. And we can do static and dynamic content as well. And so as you kind of look at what we're doing, it's a great fit for 95+% of the applications that are out there. There are certainly cases where an Akamai is going to be, very specifically needed for a specific case. But in most of the cases for our customers, we're actually able to provide that capability for the majority of their applications.
Now, by scaling horizontally, you mean basically if you need to proxy more traffic, you can just spin up more containers.
So every customer gets their own set of containers. We can obviously horizontally scale those from a failover as well as from just a geographic footprint. We have 3 primary data centers within the U.S. We have a Asia-Pac version, we've got a European version, and as I said before, the ability for us to really deploy in AWS or Azure means we really sit down with each of our customers, understand what their customer or user deployment model looks like, and then we deploy appropriately so that we can ensure that they've got the best performance possible.
And I think one of the great differentiators is you can protect legacy applications, not just the DevOps style. Like if I'm already in containers and I've got DevOps and I'm deploying into a container environment, sure, it's easy for me to tack on security modules to that.
Sure.
But with your solution, you can cover legacy applications because not everyone's there yet in DevOps.
Exactly, and I think that's the reason we really focused around a reverse proxy style of implementation was to give us that kind of flexibility. And again, we're thinking of it as a hacker thinks about approaching and targeting a company. We know it's those edge applications that are going to be, as important, if not more important, when it comes to the reconnaissance they're going to do. So we wanted something very simple to deploy, something that could be up and running within minutes, hours, not necessarily days and weeks. And then from a, tuning the application, the fact that we don't block purely based on a binary decision, we block based on looking at it in full context and watching how they're progressing through means the false positives are very, very low, the accuracy is high, so they can move into a tuning mode virtually immediately.
I see. So with a traditional WAF, it's like, oh, I saw that string, I got to block it, and I've got horror stories of people taking out huge pieces of infrastructure doing it that way, but you're watching the whole chain and saying, after these 3 or 4 different activities, now I'm going to block.
Yeah, and to take it maybe a step just a little bit deeper than that, usually what you're doing when you're doing a traditional static rules engine is you're finding certain things that you've got to either whitelist out just simply because that's normal application behavior.
Right.
In our case, we don't whitelist out anything. We actually just downrate how that affects the overall risk. And what that allows us to do is we can show a lot of low-level traffic. However, there's certain vectors that would potentially have been backdoors if you'd whitelisted it out that we're going to continue to monitor and see if I put that together with the additional steps that they're taking. That's how we can actually pick up, some of the more advanced attacks.
Now, a lot of enterprise customers I talk to have hundreds and hundreds of applications. It's impossible for one security team to take on that responsibility given all the other things they have.
Correct.
But you also have a talented team that can help people in a SOC or MSSP style mission.
One of the things that we really got drug into this piece of the business by our customers was the fact that we had a very solid staff that was not just focused on looking at how do we write new behavioral signatures, but they were looking, again, as you pointed out earlier, they were looking at what are the vulnerabilities in the applications that are being attacked. And our SOC, they're pen test quality guys, so they were basically evaluating the applications and identifying vulnerabilities for the customers. And that's really where the customers started to say, they don't always have staff, especially in some of these tier 2, tier 3 applications, that they understand, what the type of vulnerabilities are being introduced and how to correct those vulnerabilities. And that's where our SOC really gets engaged more proactively with our customers to reach out. And in doing so, obviously you're not tuning a lot of rules. You're You're getting lots of assistance, shall we say, from folks who really understand the attacks, the vectors, and the types of technologies because they're seeing it across a broad customer base, and therefore the burden on our end customers is greatly reduced. And so that's a huge selling point for most of our customers is they're not staffing up, even though they're able to deploy this across a wider set of applications and even global implementations.
I'll give you a resounding endorsement. Every time we cover your technology, Brett, I want it to protect my applications because I'm like, I really need that.
We appreciate that.
So that's really awesome.
Great.
Now, is there any other announcements you're making here at Black Hat, or if people want to learn more, like what's their next step?
Well, I think one of the things that we love to do, obviously, is we love to get folks to take a look at our technology. POCs are something that, again, we can have them up and running in minutes.
Yeah, because you're proxying the traffic.
Yeah, and so the best thing we can do for any of the customers is encourage them to reach out to us, get a POC going with us, and they can see, right in front of their eyes all of the attack traffic, and they can play with the application, they can test it themselves, they can run scanners, they can bring in third parties. We don't care. We encourage that because it makes us smarter every time they do it.
Yep.
And they're going to get full visibility very quickly to how the solution operates, and in most cases, our customers are it's a pretty eye-opener for them just to see how much attack traffic may be out there on an applications that they typically don't see anything other than the cross-site scripting and the SQL injections and general metrics that they see.
And that's such a moving target too. Correct. And I find assurance when you say I have a team of people that are looking at that, because it's really a specialty to keep up with all these newer attacks. Even if you look at it's top 10 today, if you haven't looked at it in the past year or two, wow, there's some really new things in there that you may not have even considered before.
Always.
So.
One of the keys for our SOC is they monitor all the boards for any new attack vectors, especially if you think of WordPress or Joomla or some of the standard CMS applications. They're always testing our application against those attacks, but it's really the net new stuff that we get excited about, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
the stuff that maybe developers have introduced some types of vulnerabilities that are getting picked up. That's the stuff that gets my SOC super excited.
Oh yeah.
And it's the kind of things that really make our customers reach out and appreciate the service.
That's awesome. Brett, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome everyone to Black Hat. This is Security Weekly, broadcasting live from the Black Hat Security Conference in very sunny and hot Las Vegas in the Pool Cabana. And I'm here with some special guests. Willie Leichter, did I get that right?
Yes.
Is here, and you're from Versec?
Yes.
And Julian Zottel is from Raytheon.
Correct.
All right, so this is, how did you two guys meet? Was it
well, our companies are partnering. Raytheon is one of the, we met today actually.
Raytheon met today, yes.
Yeah, Raytheon is a major defense and infrastructure contractor. We've been working with them for a couple of years, validating our technology. We're a security startup based out of Silicon Valley. We have some very unique technology, but Raytheon has been helping us test it, validate it, and deploy it.
Yeah, awesome. So we talk about this a lot, how we test and validate security solutions. So I guess, Willie, start with the problem that your product is trying to solve.
Yeah, so we're trying to solve kind of a cutting-edge problem of these advanced attacks that are finding ingenious ways around all of our defenses. We talk a lot about fileless attacks, memory-based attacks, but the whole area of memory protection is kind of fuzzy with a lot of people, a lot of companies. So we're front and center in that memory protection. We also are seeing this new kind of attack that essentially, people used to talk about the kill chain where you do reconnaissance, you weaponize something, you throw a bomb. What's happening now is these very subtle multiple paths are coming in, and the weaponization is happening in the application while it's running. So it's a very, we're on the front edge of a lot of these advanced attacks. It was considered kind of obscure until WannaCry and Petya and Indestroyer and all these new attacks came up in the last year.
And Julian, what's your role at Raytheon?
So I'm a cyber and information operations subject matter expert. I basically travel the world and helping customers solve their problems. I do a lot of architecture work, so if they have an issue, we'll come in, we'll design an architecture to help them alleviate that issue and hopefully protect them in the future.
So you're seeing the customers you're working with are experiencing a lot of these advanced attacks?
Incredibly, yeah. So I deal mostly with either foreign government or our U.S. government customers. And yeah, we're starting to see these attacks regularly.
differentiate for me a standard attack versus an advanced attack?
Oh yeah, sure. No. So a lot of the standard attacks, the ransomware that you're seeing nowadays, they're getting in through emails. People are clicking on PDFs or something along those lines. The advanced attacks, much like Willie was talking about, we're starting to see deployments differ greatly. So they know that a lot of these places are putting in IPSs and things like that and watching their network traffic. So they're delivering piece parts. So one part might come in via a PDF and an email or something to that effect. Another might be through another vector. And essentially what they're doing is they're assembling pieces of a puzzle behind the scenes. So individually, these pieces, don't look like anything.
It all comes full circle, right? When we talked about network-based attacks, we talked about fragmentation attacks, and if I were to fragment my attack, the IDS wouldn't pick it up because it's not able to do the reassembly.
You got it.
We're kind of seeing the same thing today, except it's not all in the network. They're just delivering pieces of it to slip by defense.
And I think the battleground has moved to the applications themselves, particularly in runtime as opposed to being in transit or in disk.
Right.
It's, things are in runtime now indefinitely. We work with a lot of critical infrastructure companies, as well as Raytheon, where they have systems that really don't ever go offline or should never go offline.
Right.
So there's a lot of concern, and this has become the new battleground.
And so I want to get back to the pieces and parts.
Sure.
How do you detect that when the attackers are breaking up their kill chain, for lack of a better term, into such small pieces? First, how is that bypassing defenses? And then secondly, what do we do about it?
It's a very difficult problem, I'll be honest. The best thing you can do is try to identify those pieces before they start coming in. That doesn't often happen, I'll be honest. A lot of this stuff you're not going to see Symantec detect, obviously, or not. Or any of the other antivirus guys, until it's fully assembled. Once they start seeing the assembled payload, that's when you start seeing the behaviors and where a lot of these like AV/EDR solutions can start seeing that kind of thing. Much to what Willie was saying, what we're seeing a lot of now is very targeted attacks. The perpetrator will know that there is a specific application running there. They will target that customized application with a customized payload. It's very difficult to pick these things up before they get, they get there.
And so how does Versec help with that?
Perfect segue. So we're unique in that we are not trying to stop the stuff coming in. A lot of people are doing that, but there's always ways in. We are actually looking at the application, particularly the memory usage in runtime, in real time. And I'll give you an example. If you have a compiled application, as it's loaded into runtime memory, all of the source and target destinations and memory blocks are assigned. They don't change, or they shouldn't change. So we have some patents around this. We create a map of where it's supposed to go to essentially guardrail the application. And if it goes somewhere else, a memory block that wasn't assigned, that's almost definitively a problem. So essentially we are watching as accurately, as closely at the application itself to ensure wherever possible that it does the right thing, as opposed to the endless threat chasing and chasing bad.
What percentage are you detecting with that particular patented technique?
It's always hard to measure percentages of unknown threats that you're capturing because we capture 100% of the ones that we find.
Right? Yeah.
But not being facetious, what we focus on, though, is being very precise. So when we find something, we're very, very confident that it's a real attack.
Yeah.
And false positives,
because you're mapping the memory and when it goes outside of that mapping.
Exactly. And false positives, undermine security as much as anything. If you drown out the signal with the noise, then all the security. It's like what happened with Target. So we are, we call it a deterministic process. So it's much more black and white as opposed to most probabilistic models where there's always some unknown guesswork.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not taking into account like 8 million different scenarios.
Right.
You're looking at just that one patented idea going, well, if the memory footprint it doesn't add up, then it's trying to do something malicious. And when we think about processes running in memory, you're right. Like when you exploit a process, you're forcing it to dip into another piece of memory that it normally doesn't.
Right, exactly. Now we also
and you guys have a patent on that? That's pretty cool.
We do, yes. Yeah. We have several patents on it. It's we've been developing the technology for a number of years, been working with Raytheon for about 3 years now, but we're just bringing it commercially to market. We also work at other levels with web attacks, with interpreted code, where you have more variables, but it's still the same basic idea that the programs are designed to follow, do what they're supposed to do.
Now, Julian, you can validate. Obviously, you're sitting here with Willie, right? But you can validate this is a valid solution.
Oh, no.
As security professionals, of course, we're always looking for validation.
Of course.
It sounds like this is working for you and your clients.
It is, and we're deploying it in very mission-critical areas.
Yeah.
Things that absolutely cannot go down or be hacked, for a better word. Now nothing's 100%, but we're seeing very good success with their product.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
I'd just say it's there's a new area. I think we've seen this a lot in security. Julie and I were talking where there seems to just be, you always have to keep going down a layer and a layer. And if we don't go deeper, we're not keeping up with the hackers. Talk a lot about nation states or well-funded hackers. A lot of these advanced attacks now have kind of become democratized. They're out there in volume now. So it's imperative to start finding ways to address this, because this is where the battlefield is.
And just to supplement that a little bit, I mean, we've gotten to the point where 0 days and such are commoditized. Companies like Zero Dome will pay for you to develop a 0 day for these guys.
Sure.
So we're going to see more and more attacks that just are out of the league, so to speak, of traditional antiviruses and stuff like that.
Now, Julian, did you test a lot of different solutions for dealing with this problem your customers were having?
We have. In fact, we have a very good place that's public called the Code Center, which we do a test and evaluation of all these types of products. And we generally pick based on evaluations that center provides.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is that something publicly available? We can put the notes for the show so listeners can find it? Or is it easy to remember URL?
Yeah, I believe you can. She can provide you the URL.
Okay, yeah. We can add it
Raytheon Code Center, CODE.
Okay.
We do a lot of testing for, obviously, government agencies and such like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We're in there as well. So
it's great. Yeah. Julie and Willie, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching this interview from Las Vegas. If you want to watch and learn more, go to securityweekly.com/summercamp18 or go to our YouTube channel, Security Weekly, to view the playlist.